All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another deep dive.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Today's deep dive, we live in the digital age, right?
Absolutely swimming in data.
Yeah, we're swimming in data.
Yeah.
And we rely on computers for pretty much everything.
Everything.
But have you ever thought about how all that data is kept safe?
Right. Like what's going on behind the scenes?
Yeah. So for this deep dive, we're going to be talking about information security.
Okay. Love it.
And we're going to be basing it off of this chapter from a book that we're reading.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Think a good one.
And some of the questions that we're going to answer are, what does it even mean to be secure?
Right.
And how do we measure that?
And how can we be secure without, being a complete, tech genius?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What practical steps can we take?
Yeah.
So first things first, what is information security anyway?
Right. Good question. Is it just like having a digital fortress?
Right. Yeah. An impenetrable digital fortress.
So it's not really about being perfectly secure, because that's kind of a myth.
Right.
It's more about being reasonably secure, given the threats and the vulnerabilities.
Right.
Like you wouldn't leave your door wide open, but you probably don't need, armed guards 24/7.
Right. Okay, so reasonably secure.
Yeah.
I like that. But how do we determine what's reasonable?
Right.
Like what's reasonable for my online banking
Yeah.
versus like my social media?
Right. The stakes are definitely different.
Yeah.
So that's where understanding the different types of attacks and their potential impact comes into play.
Okay.
Remember the 3 key aspects of information we talked about before.
The CIA triad.
Yes. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Yeah. Keeping things secret, accurate, and accessible. How do those tie into actual attacks?
So think of it like this. Each of those aspects can be targeted.
Okay.
Let's say someone sets up like a fake Wi-Fi hotspot to steal your login.
Oh, yeah.
That's an interception attack.
Yeah.
It targets confidentiality.
Right. Okay. So they're trying to steal your information.
Exactly.
Like a digital wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly. And then there's interruption. Like, let's say hackers flood a website with traffic and make it crash.
Yeah.
That's a denial of service attack.
Oh.
And that impacts availability.
So it's like they're cutting the phone line so no one can call in.
Precisely. And then you have modification,
Uh-oh.
where someone actually changes the information.
Okay.
Like hacking into a system to change financial records.
Right.
That's a direct hit on integrity.
That one's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
And finally, there's fabrication.
Okay.
Attackers create like false information to deceive people.
Oh.
Think about those phishing emails.
Yeah, phishing emails. They're always trying to trick you.
Exactly.
All right. So knowing all of these different types of attacks helps us understand, what we're up against,
Exactly.
where the weaknesses might be.
Yeah, it's like knowing your enemy.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So then how do we assess the risks?
Well, once you understand the potential threats and how they might exploit vulnerabilities, you can start to put measures in place
Right.
to kind of mitigate those risks.
Okay. So it's like chess.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
trying to think like, what are they going to do and how can I protect myself?
Yeah. Anticipate their moves.
Okay. But then how do we actually protect ourselves?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
The problem's there, but what do you do about it? It's kind of like building a security system for your house. You wouldn't just have one lock on your door.
Right.
You probably have an alarm system and motion sensors and maybe a guard dog.
Yeah. So it's all about layers.
Exactly. Layers, not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's called defense in depth. It's one of the most fundamental principles of information security.
Okay.
Think of it like a medieval castle with multiple walls and a moat.
Right.
Even if one layer is breached, the attackers are slowed down.
Okay. So multiple layers makes it more difficult for them to get to the important data.
Oh.
Okay. But what are these layers in the digital world?
So there are 3 main types of security controls.
Okay.
Physical, logical, and administrative.
Okay.
Physical controls are the most tangible.
Okay.
Things like locks, security cameras, even fire suppression systems.
Right.
These are all about protecting your physical assets.
So the real world stuff, not just the digital stuff.
Right, exactly. So like servers and computers, protecting them from unauthorized access or damage.
Okay. I hadn't really thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook, but physical security is the foundation. Imagine someone just walking into your server room and stealing a hard drive.
Oh.
All that fancy digital security wouldn't matter.
Right. That's a good point.
Then you have logical controls which protect your data in the digital realm.
Okay.
Things like passwords, firewalls, encryption, your digital guardians.
So like a digital moat and drawbridge?
Exactly.
Okay, I like it.
But those things are constantly evolving, right?
Right, yeah, because you're always hearing about new malware and new hacking techniques.
Absolutely. Technology is always advancing, so staying informed is crucial.
Right.
But the underlying principles remain the same.
Okay.
It's about controlling access, preventing unauthorized changes, and ensuring that your systems and data are available when you need them.
Okay, so stay vigilant, keep learning.
Got it.
Okay, and what about those administrative controls? Are we talking about boring policies and procedures?
Well, they might not sound as exciting, but administrative controls are essential for creating a culture of security.
Okay.
Think about things like security awareness training for employees, strong password policies, incident response plans.
Right.
It's about establishing best practices and making sure that everyone in the organization is on the same page.
So it's not just about the technology, but about people and processes too.
Exactly. The human element is often the weakest link.
Right.
Think about those phishing emails we talked about earlier.
Right.
They prey on human error.
Right. People make mistakes.
Exactly.
So those mandatory security awareness videos at work actually have a purpose.
Absolutely. They raise awareness and teach people how to spot potential threats.
Okay.
A well-informed employee is your best defense.
All right, so we've got our physical controls, our logical controls, and our administrative controls,
Right.
all working together to create that defense in depth.
Yes.
But what are some real-world examples of this layering?
Okay, so think about a major bank.
Okay.
They'll have physical security measures like guards and cameras at their branches and data centers.
Right.
And then they have strong logical controls like firewalls and intrusion detection systems and encryption to protect their networks and data.
Okay.
And they'll also have administrative controls like strict access policies, background checks for employees, and regular security audits.
So like a multi-layered fortress with each layer kind of reinforcing the others.
Precisely. And even if one layer is compromised, say an employee falls victim to a phishing attack and reveals their login credentials, the other layers can still prevent a full-blown breach. They might gain access to one system, but they won't be able to move laterally throughout the network or access sensitive customer data.
So that's how it works.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it really shows that you need a holistic approach to security.
Right.
But with technology evolving so rapidly, how do we stay ahead of the curve?
Right. How do we make sure that our defenses are always up to date?
That's a great question, and it brings us to one of the most critical aspects of information security.
Okay.
Staying informed and adapting to the changing threat landscape, security is not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process.
Okay, so it's not about reaching some like security nirvana.
Right.
It's about constantly learning and evolving.
Exactly, staying one step ahead of the bad guys.
Okay, and that involves understanding not just the technical aspects of security, but also the human element. And that's where concepts like identification and authentication come into play.
Yes, exactly.
We've talked about these before. It's all about proving who you are in the digital world.
Right.
But I have to admit, I still get confused about all the different methods.
Yeah. Passwords, biometrics, those little token things. It's a lot to keep track of.
It can definitely feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But breaking it down can help.
Okay.
At its core, authentication is about verifying your identity, proving that you are who you say you are.
Okay.
And there are 5 main factors that can be used for this.
5? I thought passwords were like the main thing.
Passwords are just one factor, what we call something,
Right.
Think of it like different ways to prove your identity. You also have something you have, like a physical key or a security token that generates a one-time code.
Oh, like those little gadgets that banks give you to log into your account?
Exactly. And then there's something you are, which uses biometric data like your fingerprint or iris scan to verify your identity.
So that's getting into some serious sci-fi territory.
It might seem futuristic, but biometrics are becoming more and more common.
Yeah.
And it's not just fingerprints and iris scans. There's also facial recognition, voice recognition, even gait analysis, which analyzes the way you walk. Wow, so they can actually identify you based on how you walk.
It's a powerful technology, and it shows how much information can be gleaned from our unique characteristics. But even biometrics have their limitations.
Really? I thought they were foolproof.
Well, no security method is truly foolproof. Even fingerprints can be spoofed, and facial recognition systems can be tricked by things like photographs or even masks.
Okay, so biometrics aren't a silver bullet. What about those other fancy methods like iris scans or gait analysis? Are they more secure?
Iris scans are generally considered more accurate than fingerprints, but they require special equipment and can be expensive. Gait analysis is still a relatively new technology, and it's not widely used for authentication.
Yeah.
Yet the key is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each approach and use them appropriately.
Okay, so it's about choosing the right tool for the job
Exactly.
and understanding their limitations. What about good old-fashioned passwords? Are they really that bad?
Passwords have their place, but they're definitely not perfect. The problem is that people tend to choose weak passwords, reuse them across multiple accounts, and don't store them securely.
Right.
This makes them easy targets for attackers.
So it's not necessarily the passwords themselves that are the problem, it's how we use them.
Exactly. A strong password, one that's long, complex, and unique, can still be effective, but it's important to combine passwords with other factors whenever possible.
Right. You're talking about multi-factor authentication, that thing where you get a text message with a code to log in.
Exactly. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is one of the most effective ways to boost security. It makes it much harder for an attacker to get into your accounts, even if they steal your password.
So it's like having a combination lock.
Perfect analogy. The more factors you use, the harder it is to crack the code. But it's also important to understand that even MFA isn't foolproof.
Wait, really, how can someone bypass that if they don't have all the factors?
There are sophisticated attacks like SIM swapping or phishing that can trick users into revealing their one-time codes or giving up control of their devices.
Oh, wow. So even with all these layers of security, there's still a human element that can be exploited.
Exactly. Security is a complex puzzle with many moving parts.
Right.
And while technology plays a crucial role, it's ultimately people who make the decisions that impact security.
So it all comes back to awareness, education, and making smart choices in the digital world.
Precisely. And that brings us to another important aspect of information security, the legal and regulatory landscape. It's not just about protecting data from a technical standpoint, but also about complying with laws and regulations that govern data privacy and security.
Right. You mentioned this earlier, the legal mumbo jumbo. Honestly, it all seems a bit overwhelming. Where do we even begin?
It can definitely seem daunting, but it's essential to understand the legal framework that surrounds information security. And the first step is to identify the specific laws and regulations that apply to your industry or organization.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Definitely not. For example, if you're in healthcare, you need to comply with IPA, which governs the protection of patient health information. If you're in finance, you'll likely need to comply with regulations like SOX or PCI DSS, which focus on financial reporting and payment card security.
Wow. So many acronyms. It's like learning a whole new language.
It can feel that way at times, but there are resources available to help you decipher it all. Industry associations, government agencies, and even consulting firms specialize in helping organizations navigate the complex world of compliance.
So we're not expected to become legal experts overnight.
Of course not, but building a basic understanding of the key principles is essential. And remember, compliance isn't just about avoiding fines or penalties. It's about doing the right thing and protecting sensitive information.
Right. It's about ethics and responsibility.
Exactly. It's about building trust with your customers, partners, and stakeholders. And in today's world, trust is more valuable than ever.
Okay, so we've talked about, the technical side of security and the human element, but now let's talk about the legal stuff.
Right? The legal landscape and compliance.
Yeah, honestly, it always seems a bit like overwhelming to me.
It can be.
Yeah, so why should I even care about it?
Well, imagine you've built this amazing digital fortress, right?
Okay.
With all the bells and whistles, but you forgot one thing. You didn't comply with a certain regulation.
Ah.
And suddenly you're facing huge fines and lawsuits.
Okay, so it's not just about ticking boxes on a checklist.
Exactly. It's about real-world consequences.
Right. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
These laws and regulations are there to protect people and businesses and society as a whole.
Okay.
They ensure that data is handled ethically and that privacy is respected.
So it's about doing the right thing even when no one's looking.
Exactly.
But how do we even know where to start?
Well, the first step is to figure out which laws and regulations apply to your specific industry.
Right, so it's not a one-size-fits-all.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Like if you're in healthcare, you need to follow iPay.
Right.
That's all about patient privacy. But if you process credit card payments, then you have PCI DSS.
Okay. Which focuses on payment card security.
There are so many laws and acronyms.
I know it can be a lot.
Yeah, so do we have to become legal experts overnight?
No, of course not. But it's good to have a basic understanding of the main principles.
Okay.
And remember, compliance is not just about avoiding those fines.
Right.
It's about doing the right thing, protecting sensitive information.
Right. Okay, so then once we know which regulations apply, what do we do?
Then you need to implement the right policies and procedures and controls to make sure you're compliant.
Okay, so that sounds a lot like the security measures we talked about before.
It is a lot of the same things: strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, encryption.
Right.
They're often required by law.
So we should be thinking about compliance all the time, not just like a one-time thing.
Exactly. It should be part of your organization's culture.
Okay.
And that includes having a plan for what happens if there's a security incident.
Right, like a data breach.
Yes, a data breach. Even if you do everything right, sometimes things happen.
That's why you need a solid incident response plan.
Okay, so it's not just about preventing incidents, but knowing how to respond when they happen.
Exactly, because even the best defenses can fail.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about technical stuff, human error, and the legal side of things. What are some of the big trends that are shaping the future of information security?
Well, one major trend is the growing focus on privacy.
Okay.
Data breaches are happening more and more, and people are more aware of how their data is being used.
Yeah.
So governments are making stricter privacy laws.
Like GDPR.
Exactly. GDPR sets a high standard for data protection, and it's had a global impact.
So it's like a worldwide movement toward privacy.
Yeah, you could say that another trend is the use of artificial intelligence in security.
Oh, AI.
Yes, AI can help automate tasks and analyze data and detect threats more effectively.
But couldn't AI also be used by bad guys?
That's a possibility, which is why we need ethical guidelines and laws to govern the use of AI.
Right. It's a powerful technology.
It is, and we need to make sure it's used responsibly.
Okay, so we've learned a lot today about information security.
We have.
And it's clear that it's constantly evolving.
Yes, it is.
And it's everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely.
We need to keep learning and adapting.
That's right.
Okay, so thanks for joining us for this deep dive on information security.
It was my pleasure.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future episodes.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay safe out there.